Yes, everybody, welcome back. This is 5 things that we learned watching Manchester United against Tottenham Hotspur. It isn't one of the things that we learned, but can I just say, it did feel good to actually have football to watch and to analyse again and to talk about and discuss, rather than speculating about all sorts of shit and complaining about everything. That being said, I am going to do some complaining in this. But at least it's complaining about an actual match, which is different, isn't it? Right, here we go. Number 1. Bruno and Pogba works. Paul Pogba came on in the 63rd minute for Manchester United, and from that moment, Manchester United had 5 shots on goal, with 2 of them being on target. There was that pass to Marcus Rashford, which Rashford probably could have done a little bit better with. There was 17 out of 18 passes from Paul Pogba. We also saw Bruno have 12 out of 17 passes in that time. Manchester United had a period just before that little water break where they was absolutely dominating the game. Not just dominating the ball and knocking it around at centre-half, but actually creating a lot of chances and was knocking on the door where you're like, Manchester's not going to win here. We're going to score in a minute. And then the water break happened and really deflated our sails. At the start, I thought it was the correct decision to go with a midfield that probably offered a little bit more energy than what you might get from Pogba. I don't think any of us expected Jose Mourinho to park the bus so blatantly at home to someone like Manchester United with Tottenham. Definitely didn't expect that, but that is what we got from Jose Mourinho. And maybe you can make the case that that substitution could have come at half-time once we realised what was actually happening. United was having so much possession, but we wasn't getting anything into the final third. As soon as we got Pogba and Bruno on, the penetration changed and we started to actually create chances. Martial actually started to get involved in the game. We saw Rashford on there. Obviously then Mason Greenwood came on and we saw him getting stuff going on in the final third. And latterly we saw Ighalo almost getting in the stuff as well. And we saw Tony Marshall with a gilt-edged chance that he snatched and turned at, turned and snatched at. But he got it on target and it was only a wonderful save from Luis which stopped that going in at that moment. Manchester United were absolutely flying, and I think that proved to us, yes, Paul Pogba and Bruno can play together. The bigger question, I think, is going to be who sits behind them. Is it Scott McTominay? Is it Matic? Is it Fred? I think it's probably going to be a different answer depending on which team we're lining up and what their strengths and weaknesses are and how that blends in with what we're doing as a team. But I thought for their first half an hour together, some mega impressive signs. And when it comes to those teams that we struggle to break down, like we did today with Tottenham, with teams that just aren't interested in playing football with us, that just sit there with a completely defensive structure that we've struggled all season to break down, having Pogba and Bruno on the field is going to be a massive asset for us going forward. Number 2 then, the players faded. And this one was probably expected to a greater or lesser degree. Didn't necessarily see it so much with Tottenham because, well, to be honest, they didn't fucking do anything. And they certainly didn't do any running around. But we saw Manchester United players, Luke Shaw, Marcus Rashford and probably Bruno, all really start to fade towards the end of the game. I think it was just heavy legs, lack of match sharpness, just that little bit of like pure match fitness really and match rhythm, and just that you can't really quite put your finger on it. You can train, but you don't get the intensity that you get of a match. And I think that really started to affect a few of the players. We have seen that in different leagues. We've seen the intensity level drop. I don't really think we saw a low-intensity game from United. I think United was quite intense throughout the game, although you could argue it maybe took us a little bit of time to properly get into it. I think it was natural to see the players sort of taper off and fade, and I think it's going to be something that you might expect to see over a couple of weeks before they acclimatise and adjust and start getting into the swing of things again. And there's not that much time for them to change because the next match is in 4 days. Yes, you heard that right. The next match, Sheffield United, is on Wednesday night. So not a lot of time for everybody to catch up. Hopefully, we do start getting into the rhythm of things because we are going to need to hit the ground hard and start chasing down that top 4 spot. Number 3, the De Gea debate. Now, obviously, if we didn't concede a goal, we come away with 3 points. Simple as that. You keep a clean sheet, you score a goal, you win matches. That's how easy that sort of thing is. And I think it's probably a little bit harsh to just entirely blame David De Gea, but I do think he probably could have done better with the shot. I think Maguire was involved in it. I think Shaw was involved in it. I also think Victor Lindelof was involved in it. If you want to see why, go and check out the review from last night where I did go into that in a little bit more detail. But the question mark exists over David De Gea. It's probably been a good 18 months where he has been royally off the boil. We've seen his distribution called into question. We've seen his handling called into question. And this is the total difference to the guy that we were so desperate to keep hold of just a few years ago. Roy Keane absolutely tore him to shreds last night. This is what he had to say. I'm shocked. I'm shocked at that goal. I've watched a lot of football over the years. I'm fuming watching this game of football. I'm staggered at Maguire, and I'm sick to death of this goalkeeper. That goalkeeper, the most overrated goalkeeper I've seen in a long, long time. Maguire and De Gea, I wouldn't even let them on the bus after the game. Get a taxi back to Manchester. These are established international players, and we are sitting here. And I know we have to analyse the game, analyse it till the cows come home. You do your job. We're trying to get into the top four, not win the league, by the way. We're talking about getting into the top four. God forbid about winning trophies. Shocking. I am disgusted by it. Roy Keane completely sitting on the fence and not really coming out and saying what he really means there. Fucking hell. No, I think Keane's got a little bit of a sentiment. He does what Roy Keane does and just go at it full pelt as he normally does. But there is an element of, because Henderson exists, because Henderson is on loan from Manchester United doing bits and not putting up the sort of mistakes that De Gea's made, because Henderson is out there putting in good performances, he's going to get compared to David De Gea, especially when David De Gea is out here making mistakes. And it isn't just one mistake. He's made 3 errors this season leading to Premier League goals, and he tops the chart with 7 errors leading to goals since the start of last season. That is not good enough. You can't be the literal worst person for making errors and people just go, oh, he was all right 5 years ago, he won Player of the Year. That doesn't really cut it. How good are you now? How good are you going to be for the next season and the season after that? That is the question we need to find the answer to. And I think there is a massive debate going to be had about whether Dean Henderson or David De Gea should be United's number 1. Let me know in the comments, where do you stand on this one? Number 4, struggle against a low block. A very familiar thing for Manchester United over the last year or so, I guess, that we have struggled against teams that have a low block. We didn't think we would struggle against teams that have a low block if we've got Pogba and Bruno, I guess, but this is also Tottenham. This isn't someone in a relegation battle who are shit. This is Tottenham with some really good players. Oh, and Jose Mourinho. Oh, and he had 3 months build up to know that he was going to be playing us. Of course, Jose Mourinho wanted to restrict the opportunity to get in behind them because he knows Manchester United's strengths. He intimately knows Manchester United's strengths. He also knows Manchester United's weaknesses, which is, I think, why Luke Shaw was probably targeted, because I don't think Jose Mourinho likes Luke Shaw very much. But we did struggle against a team that parked the bus a little bit. And we dominated the game from a possession point of view, but we didn't dominate it in the final third. I mean, we were better than Tottenham, but I wouldn't say we was just knocking at the door and absolutely hammering them. United had 480 passes to Tottenham's 271, but most of them was being knocked around defence, and that's not penetrative possession. That's just keeping hold of possession and looking to launch it forward. If we'd have had Paul Pogba on a little bit early, if we'd have maybe looked to have a different option up front, maybe Igalo was better suited to this because of how crowded out Tony Marshall was about to get. There are things that, in hindsight, you can go, maybe we can get a 1% in there, maybe we can get a 1% in there, but at the end of the day, maybe it's just, it was Jose Mourinho with 3 months and an axe to grind against Manchester United, and it was always going to be a difficult game for us. And I think Jose Mourinho showed exactly why he's no longer the Manchester United manager in this. Harry Kane had more touches with 2 in his own box tonight than he had in our box. We'd be fuming at that. We would literally be absolutely ripping our hair out about that. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has changed the narrative around Manchester United. We'd be all sitting here talking about how a point away at Tottenham was a good thing under Jose Mourinho, because he'd have convinced us and he'd have been leading up to us, telling us about how difficult that game is and how, you know, this is a hard place to go and I expect to lose here probably, something along those lines, and we'd have come out and gone, we got a point, that's all right, isn't it? We are all here today going, wanted the 3, and I felt like we were good enough for the 3, and it felt like he didn't really try for the 3, and it felt like out of the 2 managers that are walking away from there, Mourinho's happier with the 1 point than Solskjaer is. Solskjaer had this to say: I'm a bit disappointed we didn't win, but football is strange. Last year, Spurs absolutely battered us for 40 minutes, and today it was the opposite. That performance is a pleasing thing for me compared to the points. Yeah, not happy, but first game back after 3 months. Jose Mourinho with an axe to grind and 3 months to prepare, and a very good team at his disposal, now fully fit. It is what it is. Not saying I'm happy, not saying I'll take it. It's not the worst result out there, is it? And finally, Bruno, by far our best player. There was at times, once we'd gone behind and once we were trying to get back into the game, where you just look at him and you go, if it fucking wasn't for you, we would have literally no chance. Here's what Bruno did in today's game. Most final third passes attempted, most final third passes completed, 8 ball recoveries, most shots on target, most chances created, 3 fouls suffered, 1 goal. He's now made it 6 goal contributions with 3 goals and 3 assists in 6 games. He's well good. He is actually well good, isn't he? I'm loving watching him, and do you know what? Sometimes you get a good player who's a bit of a prima donna. I fucking love Berbatov, but he would be frustrating because he'd know he was good, and he'd be like, well, it's what Berbatov does. 1, talks about himself in the third person. 2, don't track back, don't tackle. Bruno's not about that. Bruno's getting in there, trying to make tackles, nipping in, always on his front foot, always trying to make things happen. He's been a fucking revelation for Manchester United, and part of the reason why he was in such good form prior to lockdown. I cannot wait to see him get back up to match fitness and the rest of the players that are in front of him get up to match fitness, because he will be key to us going on 2 trophy rampages and charging into that top 4. I had to leave it on a positive. I was fucking well depressed after not fucking getting a win after waiting for 100 fucking days. Anyway, thank you for watching. Make sure to come and join us tonight with a bottle of rum and a pen and a paper for the rundown. If you've not watched it, and many of you haven't, basically at 9 o'clock on Saturday night, we get shit-faced. And there's the pretense of a quiz in the middle of it. Come and join it, 9 o'clock. It'll be me, some of the paddock lads, and shitloads of rum. See you there. Bye-bye.